Hey y'all, how's everyone doing? Well, let's get straight to our Bible study because we got a lot to talk about, and I'm learning that we are going to have to probably go into parts. So thank you for your patience on that. One of the things that I wanted to show you when we were talking about Genesis and about how God separated the waters, and he put, had from the waters below, he put in sky to separate the waters from above. And I found this picture a long, long time ago, and it just helped visualize what it may have looked like. Now, granted, this is just an underwater shot from probably a scuba diver or something, but see how there's water clearly underneath, and this, even though that's water in the picture, represents sky, and then there's water above. The water is above, so the sky looked like water, not sky. So there was sky and then water. And then, of course, we talk about the flood, and obviously some of that, if not all of that water, fell. So let's get into day 3. And I gotta tell you, y'all, it was hard for me not to keep going and just go straight into day 4, because the end of day 3, we're going chapter 9 through 12, and it's talking about Abraham and his relationship with Sarah in Egypt and all this sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, really? And so I thought, well, I'm just going to keep going. No, I'm going to keep these parts to the days they go with, but then I'm very quickly going to do day 4 because it's very interesting. This whole story is very, very interesting. Okay, so where are we? There's some promises. So in I don't want to recap because that'll waste time. Let's go straight and start into 9. Okay, so God blesses Noah and his sons, and he's saying be fruitful and increase in the earth. So lots of babies being born and babies of babies. And you got to remember that while this may seem weird to us now, and I'll explain this later, it was the way to populate the earth. So God makes some comments that make us kind of stop and go, huh? One of them for me, is in chapter 9, verse 2, it says, the fear and dread of you will fall upon all beasts. And I think what that means is, if you keep reading, it says, they are given into your hands, meaning you will have authority over animals, just like Adam did in the beginning. It says, everything that lives and moves will be yours for food. Just as I gave you green plants for food, now I give you everything. So remember in Genesis, God was very clear that he gave mankind green plants for food. And then he gave them fruits and berries from those plants. Made it very, very clear that's what they were to eat. That's what the animals were to eat. And you don't see the flesh of an animal until you see it sacrificed, so that the skin of that animal could cover over Adam and Eve and hide their nakedness. And that was the first sacrifice for sin, if you think about it. So, and also blood had been spilled. So, anyway, so now you see this, and but God makes it very clear, but you must not eat meat that still has lifeblood in it. Now he goes on to talk about lifeblood. For your life will surely, and for your lifeblood I will surely demand an accounting. So now he is starting to talk about if someone takes someone else's life, or even if an animal does it. It says I will demand an accounting from every animal. From each human being too, I will demand an accounting, a life for another human being. For whoever sheds human blood, by human blood shall they be shed. Now here's the thing. God is explaining why murder is so wrong. If you look in the very next line, he says, for in the image of God has God made mankind. So what you have to understand here, the reason that it's wrong to kill a human being is not because your certain moral feelings about something. Some people have no morals, and they're just, we're all born evil. But some people have no morals anyway, even if they're not Christians. And some people who are not Christians do have morals. So, like a sense of what's right or wrong is what I mean. So you can't base it on that. You have to base it on God. And God is explaining the reason why murder is wrong is because God said so. And the reason that he said so is because he wants us to recognize that he is honoring human beings by putting his image in us. So he's saying he wants us to honor each other because he made us in his image. That's why it's wrong. Now you may say, well, also because that's why it's wrong. Okay. Whenever we're deciding what we believe, we can't just go with our gut or our morals or our feelings. We have to go with the Word of God and what God says, even if it doesn't seem to make sense to us, and we're going to get into that as this goes on. Okay, and God will always prove himself out, y'all. He is a loving God, a faithful God, a just God, and yet a merciful God. Let me explain this. If you are someone who has, let me get a more modern day example. Let's say you drank and drove, and when you did, you caused a wreck that killed another person. Justice would be for you to serve justice for killing another person. Mercy would be that God would punish you, but not by taking your life. So the person who commits the sin wants mercy. But for those who are hurt by that sin, they want justice. So until it's you that commits the sin, you may want mercy versus justice. Here's the beautiful thing about our God. He is both merciful and just. He has a way. We have to trust him. It just shows, if you have a self-esteem issue, this just shows you how high esteem God has for you and for me. Okay? So that's why when something is done wrong that God says is wrong, justice must be served. A penalty must be paid. Okay? And that gets into Jesus on the cross. But it's so easy to get into long studies from even one line, and we are not even out of chapter 9 yet. Okay, so let's skip down to verse 20. This is where we see Noah, the sons of Noah, and something interesting happens. Well, first, before anything, here's the scripture I talked about the other day. It's in verse 13, 9:13. It says, I've set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Y'all, I'm not trying to knock people groups, but let me be clear about this. The rainbow is not a sign of anything but God's covenant between us and earth. And just because we take a sign of God and say, well, now it means this. Well, God said it doesn't. It's sort of like the cross. The cross is a sign. When people say, why do you wear that cross? I'm like, it's a sign to me. You know, when I'm thinking, sometimes I'll grab my cross and think about what my sin cost Jesus, what it hurt, how it hurt God. It's also a sign to others that I've given my life to Christ, and that's why I wear the cross. You can wear a cross and say it's something else, but it's not. And certainly in the fashion industry, it's just become a fashion icon, and they'll put it with the hamsa, or they'll put it with another religious sign, or just even a non-religious sign, like it's just another sign. To me, one of the signs of change that I put right there with the cross is the butterfly, because I was this worm of a person, and God morphed me into, through his ability to do that, into a beautiful butterfly. So something that crawled the ground into something that was beautiful and flies through the sky. My properties were changed, my abilities were changed, and my beauty in his eyes went from this worm who was in the dirt to this beautiful butterfly that was flying towards him in the sky. So it's just a symbol to me. But it's still a butterfly. It just means something to me sentimentally. Same thing about the cross. So when we look at the sign of the rainbow was put in the clouds as a sign of the covenant. Now, sometimes we'll see and we'll go, oh, well, scientifically, it's just water and sunlight. It's like, head scientist is God. How he made it, we can discover. But the point is that he made it, and he puts it in the sign the sky to remind us of his promise to us. And that promise was, we should be very thankful for that promise, because of what he promised in that promise was that he would never again flood the earth to destruction. Complete destruction, not just having floods, but destroy everything on the earth from a flood. Also, in chapter 8, verse 22, he reminds us that there's another promise, that the seasons will always come as expected. And in the end times, the seasons changing is one of the end time signs. So That's an important point because here he's promising that until the end, we will always have those seasons, and also that a rainbow will be a visible sign to us to remind us of the promise of his protection, and also that God is faithful to his word. So a covenant is being faithful to his words. Here's the other thing. You could do a whole deep Bible series, not just study, on the word covenant. The promise between God and man is exceptional. So it's another whole study. Okay, so we see Noah, and verse 20, Noah, it says, is a man of the soil. Isn't that interesting? Because he was taken from the soil into the flood and protected. Now he's back on the soil and he plants a vineyard. And what does he do? This man of great faith completely sinned and was ungodly. He got drunk and he lay naked, it says uncovered in the tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and went and told his two brothers outside. So the implication here that he went and told his two brothers outside was a disrespectful, almost a lack of respect. And so when we look at this, we can see a couple of things. First of all, that even very godly people can sin and make terrible mistakes. And that Ham is almost mocking his father by telling his two brothers about it. And though people can sin, it also shows the effect of when they sin, how it can affect other people. And we're going to see what happens next. Also, it reminds us that even though the wicked people